A senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, has criticized the proposed bill on compulsory voting, describing it as unconstitutional. Let's take a look at that story more. The bill, sponsored by the House Speaker, Tajuddin Abbas, proposes a 6-month jail term or 100,000 fine for eligible voters who fail to participate in elections. Falana argues that the bill violates citizens' rights to privacy, freedom of thought, and voluntary participation in elections. Falana wants the House to withdraw the bill and recommends electoral reforms like amending the Electoral Act to include proposals from the UWE's Electoral Reform Panel. Let's run you through the world's democracies where voting by eligible voters is compulsory and carries sanctions, fine, or punishment, as you may like to put it. There are 22 of them. 2 of them are African nations, namely the Democratic Republic of Congo and Egypt. 7 of them are in South America, 5 in North America, 3 of them in Europe, 2 in Oceania, and 3 of them in Asia. So compulsory voting is absolutely not a weird idea. Let's bring in Fred Nzeko, a constitutional lawyer. He joins me now from Lagos. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm good to be with you.
So this bill is causing brouhaha, if you like it. What do you make of it?
Well, it is, I agree completely with Leonard Advocate Femi Falana that making voting compulsory infringes on the rights of the citizens, infringes on the freedom of citizens to make a choice to go left or right. In as much as there are some other countries, about 22 of them in the world, where voting is made compulsory, those countries do not brandish a good credential and democratic principles and observance of human rights. So they are not good examples. Out of 193, 95 countries of the world, and there are only 22 of them make voting compulsory, even when a lot of them, in some of those countries, you have incidences of seat-type syndrome of their leadership. They are not good examples of democracy. We practice democracy, and we should follow countries with robust democracy that can be said to be good examples that can be emulated. And we agree that every law, every enactment intends to cure some ills or to address some issues or challenges. The question is, what does this proposition intend to cure? What challenge does it intend to arrest or to solve? Apart from the fact that there is voter apathy in Nigeria, which of course Nigeria is not alone. In as much as it is not encouraging the kind of the level of voter participation of the electorates during elections, we must find out what are the reasons and what are the fundamental causes why people of voting age will decide to stay away from voting arena, to the extent that lawmakers will begin to think of making it compulsory and mandatory. For any law that makes a particular act mandatory, it means that it will go with some sanctions.
Zaka, let me come in here. Let me come in here quickly and just kind of break it down for you. You made a couple of notes, which is we need to, countries participating in this compulsory voting are not necessarily great democracies. Australia has a good democracy. Singapore has, quite a commendable democracy also. There's also another Western country there that is practicing it. It has become a well-known fact that voter apathy is stealing the joy of democracy. Fewer people come out to elect the government, and part of it is because people don't think that their votes count. When you have a situation where it is compulsory for you to vote from the age of 18, it means that there will be more turnout. Don't you think that will benefit democracy in the long run?
We agree that the more the voters participate in the voting process, the better for participatory democracy. But that is not enough to make it compulsory to the extent of making it mandatory and attach some sanctions, some punishment of 6 months imprisonment or a fine of 100,000 naira or both if one fails to participate in voting. We should ask ourselves, why do people abstain from voting? The reasons are not far-fetched. Number one, people feel that their votes don't count. The very moment you make people vote to count, you see large turnout. The example was in 2023, when there was a lot of sensitization of the public and people trooped out to vote, but incidentally, a lot of them were even compelled to go back and not to vote in some states. If you punish those who didn't come to vote, what do you do to those who compel them not to come and vote, who threaten them with one measure of assault or the other if they insist on casting their vote? And what do you do to a politician that messes up the voting process and does not allow the voting pattern, or rather the votes of the people to count?
And Zeka, I'm going to come in here again.
If we want to cure that ill, we cannot create more problems in a bid to solve the problem.
Right. So what then do you say to people who say, with compulsory voting, more people will turn out, and if more people turn out, it means that politicians don't necessarily have to spend so much money on campaigning and cajoling people to come out to vote for them. And at the end of the day, that also means that there will be less and less money going into trying to buy votes at the end of the day. What do you say to people who are advocating for that?
Well, those who feel that it is it will amount to a waste of resources if after the campaigning and all the effort by the political parties and the election management body, people still don't come out to vote, must ask the critical question as to why do people decide not to come out to vote. There must be a reason. One is that if people feel that they will get dividends of democracy, they will come out to vote their choice. If the choice of the people is allowed to stand, the people will naturally come out to vote. If people are encouraged through good governance, the people will come out to vote. But in a situation where politicians do not deliver on their promises, they do not deliver on the mandate, they don't deliver on the electoral campaign promises, it is a very major discouraging factor that should even be the one to be punished. I expected that the National Assembly, especially the House of Representatives, should think of those things that will encourage the people to come out to vote, right, by ensuring that the electoral process is better improved, ensuring that people are encouraged to come out, and ensuring that there is delivery of dividends of their voting. Because when you talk about democracy, it is anchored on the freedom of the people to make their choices. Such freedom cannot be by compulsion or cannot be by mandatory coercion or mandatory sanction if they to do so.
Nzeko, is voting a civic duty? And how do you define that?
I didn't hear you well.
Is voting a civic duty? And if yes, how do you define that?
Yes, voting is a civic duty. You can only encourage the people to discharge their civic responsibility. And that is not the only civic responsibility that the citizen has to undertake. Most of the civic responsibilities, you encourage the people not by sanction, but by moral suasion and by delivering the expectations of the majority of the people, such that anybody who fails to vote will even blame himself or herself for refusing to vote. But when there is nothing to encourage the people to come and decide their civic responsibility, you really don't blame them if they don't come out. Meanwhile, the political parties have a responsibility to ensure that there is good voter turnout by being responsible, and the security agencies should also ensure that there's good voter turnout by providing the enabling, secured environment for people to come out and discharge their civic responsibility. You cannot discharge your civic responsibility in an atmosphere that is threatening your life. That is what we are talking about.
Again, I have to play the devil's advocate here, but I hear you. There are people who say if there is compulsory voting, people are going to definitely turn out. And there is a parallel, like there is a connection between a huge turnout and the ability to cheat. You know, when there is a huge turnout, the opportunity to rig the election becomes slimmer. Do you agree?
I do not think so, because the rigging of election these days does not happen at the polling booths. Rigging of elections don't happen at the polling station. Rigging of elections happen at the collation center, where they try to turn 1 to 11 and turn 11 to become 71. That is where rigging takes place. At the polling stations these days, because of the introduction of technology, the beavers, and all other measures, voting does not, rigging does not take place at the polling stations. So what it now means is that even if the people turn out in large number and they still get their voting thwarted, it is a very big discouraging factor in subsequent election. What should encourage the people is good electoral practices, delivery of dividends of democracy, and delivery of the gains of voting. And once that is done, everybody of voting age will be encouraged to come and vote, not by sanction, but by display of patriotic zeal towards the country, because they will see their votes count.
Well, Fred, we're going to have to leave it there, but just to let you know that in Australia, if you don't vote and you're 18 and you don't have a strong reason, like you had an accident, you were sick, you pay $20. And if you're not able to defend your decision or you don't pay the $20, you're going to go to court where you're going to pay $330 Australian dollars, I beg your pardon. So anyway, it happens, and it has encouraged a huge turnout in that country over the years. There are those who say that Nigeria should consider it. A lot of democracies should consider it, because voter apathy has now become a thing. Thank you so much, Fred Nzeka, a constitutional lawyer, for joining us tonight.
Many thanks.